Hi, everyone. Welcome to my show, Radiant Living, Inspiring Humanity to Thrive. This is my first show, so everybody bear with me, please. But today I have a wonderful guest, Ms. Brenda Adelman. She's an award-winning actress. She's a recipient of the Hero of Forgiveness Award. And today, what a show it's going to be. Today is going to be the power of forgiveness. There's so many programs that Brenda's been on. She's performed a critically acclaimed one-woman show. I've personally seen it. It's fantastic. It's called My Brooklyn Hamlet, and it's based on her life story about the power of forgiving the unforgivable. Hi, Brenda. Thank you so much for being here. I'm privileged and honored to have you here, especially as my first guest for this show.
Thank you so much. I feel honored to be here for your first show as well.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all? I know you're a teacher. I know that you teach many entrepreneurs. I know that you have done a lot of acting and coaching for actors, and you've taught people how to tell their story, whatever that may be. Can you just tell me all about you?
Yes, I can. Well, I'll tell you how it all started, I grew up in Brooklyn with a Jewish wannabe Italian father who taught me how to drive a Cadillac when I was 6 and how to shoot a gun when I was 10. A bohemian artist mom who took me traveling with her all over the world and read Shakespeare to me from the time I was 3 years old as a bedtime story. Big characters, big laughs, big love. And then in 1995, my father, who I adored, shot and killed my mother. And then within months moved in with and then married my aunt, my mother's sister. So that changed my whole world. Really blew, is it a pun intended? Blew my world apart with that one gun shot. But after the depression, after the despair, after losing my family in that one night, I did everything I could to feel better. And I was an actress, and it was really in starting to tell my story in a class in Los Angeles instead of hiding and being in shame and feeling like damaged goods. It was in telling my story that I started to heal. And then in crafting my story or the event in my life into a story that included the particulars of the story, the circumstance, but really the humanity within it, love, loss, betrayal. How do you get through these things? My healing started. And so now a storytelling that I did in class is now my full-length one-woman show that I've performed all over the world. And it is about the power of forgiveness.
Yes, indeed. I remember the first time I heard your story and I thought, oh my gosh, how does somebody forgive that? And
Right.
I also heard that you did, in fact, forgive your father. And if I'm not mistaken, you went to see him in prison, which was
I
something that was a
did.
big turmoil for you.
I did. This is so interesting because we were just talking before we came on. I'm like, how did we meet each other actually? And you've been like in my world a very long time. So probably, if we go back like to 2008, 2009,
Mm-hmm.
that means that was like I was still in the process of healing. I was still in the process of like defining who I was, not by what happened, but more from the healing of it. So it was a journey. I say this to everyone, forgiveness is a journey. It's not like a one-time thing, because I find that people get mad at themselves. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
I forgave this person. And then they get mad at themselves instead of being like, this is a time for you to love yourself more. I know you're not starting from square one because you have the witness there. You're seeing that there's more to heal. There's
Mm-hmm.
more to learn. I went and got a master's degree in spiritual psychology, and I applied the techniques that I learned there, which included healthy boundary setting to forgive
Mm-hmm.
my dad. I found it impossible to really forgive him when I didn't know how to set healthy boundaries. So I did go to see him in prison, um, because he went to prison about a year after my mom died, and we were in an on again, off again relationship, talking, not talking. He married my aunt in there
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. And he was so in my mind. I was obsessing about him, compartmentalizing to get through my days and then just
Mm-hmm.
obsessing. And so I just had that inner guidance before I knew that was even what it was, that I needed to go see him. And I
Mm-hmm.
went to New York. I remember an old boyfriend came with me and prepared me in case my aunt was there, because I knew they had gotten married, but I didn't know she was going to be there. Um, and
Now,
and
excuse me, when you say aunt, that was your mother's sister,
my
correct?
mother's sister, right? It would have been it would have been worse if it was my father's sister. Yes, because people have said that when he married
But
my
and biological sister, full sister,
yes,
yes.
full sister. Yes, she married him, and I went to see him, and I didn't. I was like hoping I could go see him. I was just in New York for a few days. I had moved to California already, and it was actually really healing. It was really healing to see him and to face him, and it was just another piece of my journey. Another piece of my journey. I think, though, yes, this is true. I was still holding on to, he's going to tell me what happened and I'm going to have my father back, which, of course, only in hindsight is like, why would he tell me? He killed her. He shot her in the head, killed her, but in my naivete, I was thinking that. So another level of healing for me was when he got out of prison and I was still speaking with him. Um, I made the decision to take him to court for wrongful death after he got out of prison in 2.5 years, hoping that he would say what happened. And instead, he skipped town. My brother and I won a very big judgment. We never collected on the judgment. I never saw him again. And so then the next healing was like, because I took him to court from a place of self-honor versus I'm going to punish him. When he didn't show up, it was a shock to my system. But then when he died a couple of years later, I had peace because I had done the forgiveness work of realizing that I was never going to get my father back, the one I wanted.
And I think I remember you saying one time I heard you speak that you were daddy's girl, daddy's little girl. So this was, and he was everything to you. So this was really something that needed deep work.
Needed really deep work. I definitely identified as daddy's little girl, even as an adult. I loved him. Like, some people might not be able to understand it, but we all have our own relationships with our father or our mother and stuff like that. So it was it was this deep love and this deep pain, but the real healing took place when I listened to myself instead of trying to give him excuses or it being okay that he wasn't telling me what I needed to hear and stuff like that. The real healing came from when I realized I had to listen to myself, and I also had to not have him in my life because of and stand up to him with the death. Yeah.
And one thing that I want to ask, because I have seen the show, and yes, it's comical.
Yeah, and believe it or not, people, it is comical. It is. Once you find the humor, you're healed. Yeah.
And you do all the parts, you act all the parts. But to do that all the time, how is that really deep down inside? What's your opinion of doing that work? I mean, I understand it's your job, you're an actress, but this is something close to home. This is personal.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, like you mentioned in the beginning, I teach people how to tell their stories. They're very big stories on stage, that I do it from a healing place because, and this is, I teach performers. I started teaching performers how to have their own successful one-person show, and then I shifted to teaching entrepreneurs how to tell that vulnerable story, but in a way where they're not hurting themselves. Because when I started, there are stages to telling your story. When I first told my story in that acting class, it was because it had been a couple of years of me hiding and shame and feeling like I was damaged and I couldn't share. And then as soon as I realized I could share, it was like, pardon my expression, it was like vomiting. I was like anybody and everyone I could tell. I was telling without even tuning into them because I wasn't healed. Like, are they listening? Is this too much for them? And a lot of people do this. So for people watching this, these are the different stages of storytelling. And then I perform the show, which of course is a better container because people are paying money to go to the show. And it's and because I was an actress, I knew how to write, I knew how to do comedy. I was very conscious of what I was putting on stage, and I was, having them laugh, having them cry, things like that. But I hadn't gone back for my master's in spiritual psychology yet. I was still way back the very first time I did the show. My father was still alive. I was in that on again, off again relationship. I was I had broken up with my fiance back then because honestly, I felt so unlovable. I think that's why I broke up with him. I didn't want anyone to see that pain, right? This affects our intimacy when we're not in a place of self-love and self-care. And so I would go on stage, people would laugh and cry, and I would go home and be absolutely miserable, like to the point of not wanting to live anymore. And so I would never say people should not tell their story if they want to until they're completely healed, because what is completely healed anyway?
Right.
Like while we're in this body.
Exactly.
But I did start healing as I was telling my story, because I do play all the characters, one character being my father. And as an actress, if you want to be a good actor, you cannot play yourself as a villain, because people do not play themselves as villains. And so I started to see my father again more than just this man who committed this crime, and I saw his humanity, and so that started to help the healing. But what happened was I was it was two things. I was afraid to let the audience really feel that deep pain, so I would jump right back into humor, which is also not a great thing, because you're not allowing the audience to actually heal and have that full experience. They get stuck. So that's why I'm like, I love directing other people. So what happens is I teach my clients not to relive it, to present it, to heal while they're telling that vulnerable story. Because a lot of entrepreneurs, I don't know if you know this, or small business owners are always told, tell that vulnerable story so people will, understand you. But what happens is if they haven't done the inner work, they run away. They tell their vulnerable story and then they run away because it doesn't feel good, and or it doesn't land because they don't have the skills to tell that story. So that's why I teach something called the soul story method. And it's like, get in, first of all, you don't have to share everything, but then go into those stories and heal them, so that while you're sharing, you're not reliving, but you are giving it all on stage or in an interview or something like that. You're giving it all, but then you know how to take care of your inner child, like play. I had something interesting happen. I was in Sedona performing years ago. It was more toward the beginning of when I was performing my show, and I was rehearsing for like 5 weeks, and the director kept telling me, you're really low in the beginning of the show. You have to speak louder, which was odd because I'm a professional actress. I know how to speak. And one day, like a day before opening night, I had this insight that the beginning of my show was when I was a little girl, and that it was like me feeling like I didn't have a voice. But of course, now I'm an adult and I have the play, I have the theater. And so, I talked to myself, my inner child, and I was like, let's go play. And then it changed that, so it's the stages of storytelling. It's like you tell everything. Then the next stage is like, okay, what do I want to tell, and how do I tell it so that I'm real? I'm expressing the human condition, but then I step off stage and I celebrate and I heal more,
Which is so important, because otherwise you're taking it with you all the time, and it's a heavy burden.
Exactly. And the thing about, for me, telling a story tied into your message, like mine now being about the power of forgiveness. The very first time I did the show, I wasn't in a place of forgiveness. I was in a place of, will I ever love and trust again? And that was the theme of the show, is that I forgot what I was going to say, except that I wrote the healing into existence. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Like, there's healing that you can do on your own. There's healing that you can do writing, but there is an incredible healing, probably because of the work that you do of embodying the characters in your life. Yeah.
Right. It's an interaction with the characters. Of course, not everyone can do it. Not everybody's an actor or an actress, but I know there's play therapy and so forth. And but otherwise people become stiff if you carry it inside.
Exactly.
And you don't let it out. Or you're fearful of letting it out because you're afraid that it's going to be an eruption.
Right.
But I love how you work with people to give them confidence to tell their story, give them confidence to play the parts. Yeah.
Right. I give them skills. And believe me, because about 80% of my clients now are entrepreneurs and small business owners, because of this whole thing about put your story into your business, because there's so much competition and you want to stand out, and people do want to be around people that inspire them. But it's acting that I teach them when they've never acted, but it's the acting definition that I follow is a teacher called Sanford Meisner.
Yes.
Right. And it's living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. So it's not about sketch. It's not about like, oh, I'm putting something on. Like it could be if someone's doing that, but it's about, I'm going to share with you right now what happened when my father called me at home after I hadn't spoken to him in over a year and he had killed my mother. Like, I'm back there thinking about that. And I'm here on the computer with you. So it's real, but it's under imaginary circumstances, you know? So you're like bringing forth everything. So you're kind of clearing your vessel so that you can be open and share. And then also learning not to take on other people's stuff, right? Because I do believe activating an audience, because that's how people get healed. And I do believe everyone has access to be able to heal themselves, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I agree with you. Absolutely. A lot of work for some people.
Yes. This has been
a lot of difficult work, right? Oh, of course.
Yes.
I mean, of course.
But isn't it right? Isn't it difficult to keep it down? Like when I was keeping it down,
worse, right? Almost worse.
Living. Like I wasn't in loving relationships. I wasn't stepping on stage. I was hiding. And yeah, people are afraid to speak. Like a lot of people who have come to me in the beginning, it's like they deeply, deeply want to tell their story, but they're afraid they're going to break down and cry. They're afraid like it's going to be too much. So it's like you get the help you need. You go to a therapist, you go get your healing work. I have a client who was doing sound healing when she was working with me. And I just remember the day she stood on stage. This was pre-pandemic. It was the last like showcase I did for my clients. She stepped into her power. It was so incredible. So that's why it was like, if she hadn't taken the stage, she wouldn't have gotten that extra kind of push into or pull into the healing, you know?
Now, let me ask you, how do you handle when you're working with a client and they break down because what they're saying, it's powerful, it's raw. How do you work with them, but then keep yourself in check or not go back to the place of where you were during your story? Do you?
Oh, well, I protect myself. I am an empath too. So I'll protect. I learned this lesson because I was performing my show for about 200 people many years ago now. And I had a friend volunteering who went to my master's in spiritual psychology. And after the shows, I do a Q&A. And he said he noticed me taking on people's stuff. And so I just make sure I have a ritual like for that, or if I'm working with my clients, because I do attract people who have been through big things. First of all, it's ironic because I want to hear people's stories. I believe it's the key to their freedom. I believe it's the key to people in the world not feeling so alone. And I also, in some way, don't care about someone's story. I've heard so many. I've heard
I'm sure.
From suicides to child abuse. Like I've heard so many. I say my heart breaks and then it breaks open because I feel the healing as well. So firstly, I work with a lot of people who have done a lot of work already, like they've explored stuff. If they break down, I just hold a space. It's not about me fixing them, If they need to get help, I suggest that, they go to a coach that can help with that, or a therapist, or they do tapping, emotional freedom technique, or they do something that supports them, because I did everything I could to feel better. And I encourage other people to do that, and I have techniques and things like that, like to write out your anger or write out your sadness or scream it out in a healthy way, ways to not hurt yourself or someone else. But if someone breaks down, I just hold, it's like, it's okay. Because isn't that true? It's like, if someone can just let it out, they can move through it.
Right. Well, yes. Oh, absolutely. For them to let it out, that's one of the most important things for them. But coming from more of a psychotherapy background, you as the therapist are not going to break down with them. So it's a different story. No, because there are people that they not only hold space, but they also cry and they break down, and that's fine because that's the type of work that they do. But
I don't do that, because I also believe in the higher power. I also believe that everything happens for a reason. Like I'll tear up and stuff, but I don't feel like it would help someone actually for me going into the space with them.
Right.
Then in a way that's saying that they're not empowered by what happened. They're still you know, a victim. And I don't see people as victims. I see them like I'll hold the space for them to understand that they're not in that
Hmm.
situation anymore.
Hmm.
That person only has that power because they're still giving them the power,
Right. Right.
which might be hard for some people because some people want
Right.
to stay in blame and stuff like that. But I simply, like, I just don't believe in it because I was in blame for so long. It's just so
Mhm.
disempowering. Yeah.
And how old were you when your
Get
dad
out of
did
here.
this?
I was 30, 29 or 30.
29 or 30. When your dad
Killed my mom.
killed your mother.
And then shortly after married her
Hmm.
sister. Yeah. Yes.
Very powerful, very powerful, very, very raw work that you do. I mean, the show was fabulous,
Thank
absolutely
you.
fabulous. The characters and
Thank you.
the working through things and allowing others to work through it in a very special way.
Thank you.
Very
I'm proud
special
of it.
way.
You know, and I have the forgiveness ritual in the end, and I just love that as well because I feel like it helps people in the audience. You know,
So, and now where do you go from here? What are you doing nowadays?
where do I come from here? Well, I was touring through 2019.
Hmm.
I was doing like a 35-minute version of my show with these other two women. It was called Divas in Danger, Escape, Betrayal, and Budget Plastic Surgery. It was actually
Yes.
quite amazing. I added another country and another state or so to my
Hmm.
touring. And I also did my one woman show, the full length. I think I did it in Albuquerque, yeah, that year. And then I did the show a couple of times virtually, and now I do
Hmm.
sell a ticket to the full length show, which was fantastic. It was like so great to have a show that these two theaters wanted to open their seasons because of
Hmm.
everything being shut down. And I will never stop sharing because I know it's going to help people.
Yes.
I'm getting the itch to perform again, but
Hmm.
what I have done is so I was focused on forgiveness coaching for many, many years.
Hmm.
And then I shifted to storytelling for stage in 2014. I started creating digital courses,
Hmm.
performance artists, one person shows, and then started teaching storytelling. So I have a lot of digital courses on like how do you tell your story in your marketing? How do you
Hmm.
do a great interview where you activate your audience? And then I, you know, teach video backgrounds, you know, all kinds of stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then the last couple of years, I have really focused on developing TED style talks and one
Hmm.
person
Oh,
shows.
nice.
So I've directed over 200 stories for the stage, short,
Oh,
like
wonderful.
it's been incredible. It's been so incredible. So I've been doing that. I was leading like 6 week and 8 week classes and programs. And then because as an actress myself, it was so hard to be consistent when I had this talk or show, and then it
Hmm.
was like, well, where do you perform it? Where do you
Hmm.
present it? And that's why I started producing for my clients. And then I have a membership that's like a low cost membership called Soul Story Lounge, which is about where I coach clients there once or twice a month in a
Hmm.
mastermind. And then it's also about like how do you become the best storyteller? How do you heal from your story? And then what's it like behind the scenes?
Hmm.
Like, what's the raw, real thing happening? It's not like all highlight reels. Life isn't like that. So,
No, of course not.
uh,
And where can we? I may need some of those classes. Let me tell
yeah,
you, I'm not
they're
that
pretty amazing.
technically adept, you know. So where can we actually find that? Do you have a website, or do you have?
I do have a website, although I do a lot of one page websites. My
Oh,
main
wonderful.
website is forgivenessandfreedom.com.
Mhm.
And then I do a lot of a lot of my courses I have on Thinkific. So that's a separate thing. And then Soul Story Lounge is actually HTTP, no S,
Mhm.
colon// Soul Story Lounge. And I love that one because that's like a combination of business and play. Like I do open
Mhm.
mics for them
Oh,
there.
lovely.
And then it's like, how do you do a reel? How do you do all these things? I
Hmm.
really wanted to include business because I feel like I started as an actress. So I had the video, I had the storytelling and stuff like
Hmm.
that, but I'm also a coach. And
Hmm.
I just feel like, especially like during the pandemic, a lot of people that I knew would not have stayed in business if they didn't know
Hmm.
how to do this online thing. And so that's why
Yes.
Story Lounge is like a combination. And the storytelling, because my thing is I really want people to heal from their stories.
Hmm.
So my storytelling for marketing is really there's also healing, so that
Hmm.
it's like you're sharing your story, but you're sharing something real, and then you tie it to your business.
Yes.
You know, it's important.
Yes.
tie to your business. But I always find that your personal story can tie to your business. Like people are like, no, I don't understand how that can be. You don't want to hide yourself. You don't want to overshare. It's annoying.
Right. Oh, it is. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And really, you don't want to overshare, but
Right.
it behooves people to, especially small business people, to get a coach to assist them in today's
You don't
world.
want to undershare
Absolutely.
either. You don't
No,
want to
no, no.
because you want to create that connection. I really think it's more important than ever to have that connection and
Yes.
inspire your clients so that when there's a million other people who do something similar to you, they're like, yeah, but I remember
Mm-hmm.
Marisa. I remember Brenda, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I know you have a wonderful gift for people, which is
Yes,
just
I have such a
fabulous.
wonderful gift. So
Absolutely fabulous. I so appreciate that. Really. I think it's wonderful that you're doing that.
You're welcome, because I want to help people heal.
Mm-hmm.
This is the healing. This is not the storytelling, but it's my book, which is you guys are getting the ebook. It is on it's a Kindle, but for free. Oh, it's probably backwards. It's My Father Killed My Mother and Married My Aunt, Forgiving the Unforgivable. It is half memoir and half workbook with my 3-step proven forgiveness process, and it is free for your audience.
Oh, thank you so much. I definitely will put the link in for everybody. And I'd love to have some of your workshop links and things like that. I'm sure that people are going to ask me. In fact, I told a few people that you were going to be on and they're, oh, I have to hear this. And oh, I want all the information. And so, yes.
Yay, thank you. And I will say I also have a free Facebook group called Soul Story Tribe. So you can head on in there.
Wonderful. Oh, that's great too. Yeah. And then I'm sure you have information there for other people as well, that if they want to see some of your some of the
actually a 15-minute version of my one-woman show that I did for a film festival that I got into is in that group as well.
Oh, lovely. Wonderful. Oh, I definitely. I'm going to put everything down in the comments for people so they know where to get everything. But again, Brenda, I so appreciate you taking your time to come and talk to me, especially on my first show ever.
So
something that I wasn't expecting. Thank you. Something I wasn't expecting that I was going to be doing, but I'm so thrilled that I am.
I love it. I love that you're doing it. Who couldn't use more of this healing? And
thank you. Thank you. I want everybody to really understand how wellness works, and it can work for everyone. I mean, you're living proof. Look, what a story, really. And again, I thank you. I'm so honored that you said yes to come on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hope we can speak again. I'm sure I'm going to be working with you. Absolutely. I can definitely tell you that.
Great.
Definitely.
Fabulous.
Wonderful. Thank you.